So overall, I think Bionicdance expressed herself fairly well. I just think that there needs to be the other side shown in a bit more of an argumentative fashion. Because when watching Bionic's videos, I can't help but notice a certain degree of what I would consider arrogance. Let's just have a look at a couple of those.
It really is a shame when you have to pwn one of your own. But the truth is that when someone's wrong, atheist or theist, you kind of have to make it known. And, alas, nicotine too is very, very wrong. It's all a matter of perspective and opinion. I mean, how do you not know this? How do you not have that from the definitions of the words, from how we reach moral and ethical conclusions? I genuinely don't understand why people have such a difficult time with this concept. I have a feeling it's because they're running on automatic instead of thinking.
So beginning your video by saying you were going to pwn them and what a shame it is that you're going to have to beat them up in this way, and finishing your video by saying that everyone who's an objectivist about morals, including many very prominent and famous philosophers, are only taking that position because they just haven't thought about the problem enough. I really think that's unnecessary. I think we do ourselves a disservice by talking in that way too. I feel the need definitely to point that out. But what I am going to do now is actually show how a lot of what Bionicdance is saying in this video is really assuming the definition of terms. She's arguing from definition firstly, which is fishy in the first place, but also that she gives multiple and often contradictory or overlapping definitions of what she even means by objective or subjective. So let's turn to that part now. So one of the things I noticed from writing comments myself and watching the comments go by on this video is we have to be really, really careful. So I'm actually going to put the definition out explicitly, explain it, and then go into why these are actually separate ideas. So sorry if this sounds pedantic, but I'll put some cool music in, something like fun and romantic or something, just to make it more interesting, so it's not as boring to watch. So here we go. Για να με πίνεις κάθε μέρα στο φλιτζάνι, μπορεί να είμαι.
It's not objective unless it's true regardless of anybody's opinion, even a god's.
Μα είμαι φτιαγμένη από δύσκολο χαρμάνι, μπορεί να είμαι στις.
To be objective, it would have to be something that exists outside us. It can't just be something that feels right. That's pure subjectivity. That's the very definition of subjectivity. You see, the problem is that I'm not going to trust my intuition. I want evidence. I mean, you're essentially asking me to go on faith. You're basically saying, hey, this is how you feel about this, right? So it must be true.
Θέλεις τα κέφια σου να φτιάχνω μόνο εγώ.
Actually, I'd say it's exactly the opposite. The fact that other cultures have different morals shows precisely that morality is not objective.
At this point, it becomes difficult to say even what point she thinks she's making here. She's arguing from a definition and compels nicotine, like, really gives him the push to just understand the definition. The problem is she's given, I think, about 4 different definitions that are really different. Some of them have to do with the existence of things, while others have to do with the truth of certain propositions or true statements. At this point, I don't even need to say why her view is wrong. I can just show why she hasn't provided any definition and why what she's actually talking about are completely different things. Existence is not the same thing as truth, and truth is true regardless of whether or not a culture can apprehend it. And there can be true things that I can't actually point to. They're not things in the world, or they're not backed up by physical evidence. So I'm just going to give a few examples of things that meet some of the criterion, but not others. So let's take the simple example of mathematics. It's definitely something that's psychologically dependent, like there's no number 2 out there, and there's no thing I can point to that is the Pythagorean theorem. They seem to be just inferences of certain properties of math. And we'd say even if we had like an entire culture of people who thought 2 plus 2 equals 5, that they just got something wrong. They just don't understand how math works. It's not that math has some deficiency, that it's just a matter of opinion. It's that these people don't know how to do math. So this is an example of something that is either true or false, regardless of opinion. It is definitely dependent on the apprehension of conscious beings, but it's not something I could point to or show you, and it's not something that's culturally relative. So it meets criterion 1 and 2, but not 3 and 4, which should be enough to show you that these are actually different things. But maybe you're feeling particularly stubborn today and you need another example. Let's take the definition of words. So let's say that someone thought that acorn, what we mean by acorn, really meant the capital of Italy, wherever that happens to be, in Rome, I think. But let's just say you're feeling particularly stubborn today, so let's take another example. The definition of words, things that are just definitionally true, like that all bachelors are unmarried men. Let's say that there was someone who understood this term to be just something completely different, that what they meant when they said bachelor actually meant calculator, what we mean by calculator. And he could even have an entire culture of people who used the term in that way. Now, here's another example where I can't point to it and show you, like, that is what a bachelor is. And it does seem to be culturally relative in a certain sense. Like, if enough people really thought that bachelor meant that, then maybe you can make the argument that that's what the definition is in some sense. It's dependent on the apprehension of a conscious being, but it cannot be true or false. So this is another one where it meets criterion 2 and 4, but not 1 and 3. So again, this is like when we're talking about just language or metaphysics, or the existence of things generally, it's a little more complicated than just assuming that consciousness, truth, evidence are all the same thing. The last example that I'm going to offer gives particular problems to Bionicdance given her views on science. So the actual pieces of evidence that scientists use to construct theories are objective. Let's just grant that. But if they have to evaluate that evidence in any way, which all scientists do and have to do, then we've just added an element of subjectivity. And unless she's comfortable with saying that scientific theories or evidence are subjective, then she has to grant me at some level that she needs more clarity for ideas around objectivity and subjectivity. And I have the nagging suspicion that the definitions she has offered are just completely bogus.